There's a serious problem with licensing beats online. It's a problem that we need to talk about more as producers. It's one I've addressed in the past, and it's the fact that anybody can go online and license beats, whether on the side of the buyer or the seller, regardless of how little experience or knowledge they have of the music business. Think about all the confusion in just the producer community. Forget rappers and singers who are licensing beats. Us producers have a lot of confusion when it comes to exclusive versus non-exclusive licenses. What does that mean? What happens if an artist licenses one of our beats non-exclusively and gets signed to a label? What if the song blows up? What if an artist reaches their streaming or sales limit on a license? What happens then? Which royalties are we entitled to leasing a beat, and do those royalties change based on whether we sell a beat exclusively or non-exclusively? And of course, what are the standards? What are the standard splits? What are we entitled to in terms of the master ownership? What are we entitled to in terms of the publishing, on the composition side of the copyright? So that's why I want to thank BeatStars for allowing me and Dame Ritter at Music Entrepreneur Club to power the BeatStars 2020 Summit. And I want to thank Carl Folks, who's an entertainment attorney, as well as Concept P, who you might know as a producer for 6ix9ine and Meg Thee Stallion, because they came on to the BeatStars Summit and talked about all of these things and gave really direct and honest answers. So I want to share that conversation with you here. Leave a comment, let me know what you think, and also leave a comment and let me know what questions you still want answered about the legal side of the beat licensing business, so I can pick that conversation right back up. But you can watch the BeatStars 2020 Summit in its entirety, all 3 days of it, on Twitch. Just check out BeatStars on Twitch. I also have a link below in the description, so check that out. It was a really informative day. I'm happy to be a part of it. Appreciate you watching this video. I hope you find it informative. Let me know in the comment section. Much success to you. When you uploaded a beat to YouTube, and it was a Ludfo type beat, you assumed you were just going to license that beat to probably a whole bunch of unsigned rappers. What ended up happening was something very different, right? You went platinum off that, right?
Yeah, like at the time, like my YouTube wasn't even doing anything. Like I wasn't really getting any sales off of YouTube yet. A lot of people like see me and it's like, oh, like he was a YouTube producer before, but like not really. Like my shit was getting like, 20 views, 30 views. So I was just really doing it just to get my stuff out there because I had so many beats just sitting on my hard drive.
What record was that?
Kuda.
Nice.
Yeah. So that like the way they found it is just 6ix9ine's friend, his name's Tribe Drew, found the beat online and he searched it by like the least amount of views that how you can filter it. It said the least amount of views at the top, and I had just posted it like the day before or something, and then I was on Instagram and I just seen them in the studio recording to it. So that's kind of how it started for me.
So obviously at some point it became a little more than just a beat lease. Yeah. Did they send paperwork over, and what was your reaction to that when they sent the paperwork over?
Yeah, well, at first somebody reached out to me. His name was Chris. They didn't say like who he was or anything. He was like, "Yo, I love that." Yeah, I want to buy this beat. Exclusives, right? And I was like, nah, like I just seen 6ix9ine rap on the beat. It's like I'm not gonna sell it to you now, like. And then that's when he said, "Oh, I'm his manager." I don't know what he was at the time. Like I don't think he even had like a team like set yet. But I was like, oh, okay, like they just reached out to me. And at the time I didn't have any entertainment lawyer or manager or anyone really to represent me. So I really was just going back and forth with my professor at the time, my music business professor. And he was just like kind of helping me like totally not mess up, like, you know what I'm saying? Or like sign something that I wasn't, getting any benefits off of or anything. But, luckily, like, they did it to where I still didn't have an entertainment lawyer, but I went ahead and signed it. They gave me a small advance of like $700. And then from there, like, I got all my publishing. I got everything situated. It took me a while to actually get paid out just because I didn't have like I said, a team, or like I didn't even think I had like a BMI like set up. Or I did, but it wasn't like, nothing was registered or anything. So it took me a little while to like gather up my team. And then from there, like everyone just like started getting paid out.
So from that point on, did you end up working with an entertainment attorney?
Yeah.
I just wrote an article for Producer Grind about this. Really, what happens, like what should you do when you get that message or that call from an artist or artist team saying, yo, I got a placement. So I think the first thing you should do is always contact your team. But, as P just said, you might not have a team. It might be your first placement, and that's completely fine. I think just understanding the basics, stick to 3 key points. How much are you getting up front? How many points on the master are you getting? And how much publishing should you get? Publishing is a lot easier. So if you produce the whole record, get your 50. 3 points, fairly standard. Maybe you fight for 4 if the song's already released and you have, some ground to sort of push back. But, you need your points and then your upfront fee. But, one of the things I feel like attorneys have an interesting perspective on is a lot of times I'm on the artist side, and, there's a crucial moment before people know you have a deal, and then after people know you have a deal. Because if you don't have those producer agreements in place, before you have a deal, as soon as everyone figures out that, oh, he's with Columbia or he's with Universal, that producer has a little bit more leverage to come in and say, I want this amount of money because this is that record and I know it, and that's the reason why you got signed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually had somebody contact me earlier today saying they wanted to buy one of my beats exclusively for a signed artist, and they were going to offer me $350. So, obviously I know enough because I've been getting major placements since 2008 to know that was all trash. But the 3 points that you discussed, talk about those. The first one was advance, right?
Right.
A lot of people don't quite understand what an advance is, and because there's this whole recoupment issue with the vast majority of all advances, what does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, recoupment is essentially every dollar you get goes into the bucket of, you're not going to get a piece of the master royalty until everyone gets paid, or or the label gets all their money back. So the label pays for a bunch of stuff. Then oftentimes they're paying for your producer fee or advance. And so you're not going to get any master recording royalty until everyone gets paid back. That's the recoupment process. So, you get your 5K, but that might be the only money you see ever off of record on the master side, just to be completely frank. I don't know too many producers who even have the fortitude 2 or 3 years down the line to check back in and get the royalties, because more than likely you're not going to just get a check in the mail. You might just get a check in the mail, but I highly doubt it. So you should always have that timeline, some every 6 months to a year, and you check back in with that label and try to get your points.
Yep.
Well, this is a good question for you, P, because your advance was pretty low. I mean, at the time, 6ix9ine wasn't signed to him. I don't even know if he was ever signed to a major.
I think he was signed to his current label, 10K Projects, but it was a crazy deal. I think he signed for I don't know the exact number, but it was a very small amount of number for I don't know. I don't think it was they viewed him as a big artist yet. It was just
Well, yeah, and 10,000 Projects is still not a major label, so those advances work a little differently. And when people heard that you got paid only $700, there was this big outcry. I'm like, it's a hit record. He got 50%.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand the advance. You technically got to pay that shit back. So it's like Carl was saying, say I charge, for example, just for the Kuda example, I charge them $700 up front, which is okay, that's barely anything, right? In terms of you see this big platinum record and it's oh shit, you should have got paid more or whatever. But people don't understand, whenever you get your royalty checks off of that, it's whatever the sum is minus your advance. So it's it's literally the exact word, it's in advance. It's not pocket money.
Yeah.
In a way, you gotta the label has to make that back. So a lot of the times, say if I charge 10 grand for a beat and my royalty check came in as 12 grand, it would be, I would only get 2 in the mail or directly to my account, because they already paid me out that 10. I mean, that's with an advance though. I think a producer fee is different,
Right.
But I mean, Carl could probably explain a little better. But as far as I'm concerned, like, you know, an advance always gets paid back to the label.
Yeah, and I think yeah, advances should be looked at that way, but you know, I think I'm sort of split because, you know, part of me feels like just that burden, not even the burden, but like you're having that royalty, you know, sit there and accumulate, and if you're not monitoring that, or there's a chance that it just doesn't recoup, like most records don't recoup.
Yeah.
You know, I probably say get as much of an advance as possible at this juncture, just because, you know, you don't want to monitor that recoupment. But yeah, it's an advance, and I think it's all about leverage and creating that leverage. I think some producers now can get to a point where you're getting like, you know, half of it non-recoupable, or you're in a position where you're just, all right, here's my fee because, you know, I know this is hot, and you know, this is a song that got. I think the biggest, it's just a leverage game. You have to know what leverage you have in that certain moment and know what you can ask for. And I think that's key.
Yeah, and also
what bothers my bad. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and also like sometimes like the more you charge for a beat, it makes the label push the song more. So like, so literally like, say if I charge an X amount of money, like they're in their mind they're like, okay, we got to push this song this way to pay off the producer and everybody else get paid. So like, it's always kind of in your best interest to get a bigger advance, but it's not like the end of the world. Like if it's not, like if it's a huge record, you shouldn't really, you don't really have to worry about like, you know, making sure you get that like upfront money, because the royalty checks and the publishing is going to come in like real good.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess what bothers me is that with recoupable advances, the labels will charge your account whatever they really want. That's always just been a mysterious process. So if you know, say I get a $10,000 advance on a record, I'm kind of counting on never getting another check because I don't know what they're charging against my account. And sometimes I'll look at the accounting and it'll say, all right, well, we've made, you know, $9,999 on this, or we've made $50,000 on this, but we're not paying you because it cost us $50,000 to record this song. And I'm like, there's no way in hell it costs you that much.
Yeah.
So I just take that 10,000 and call it a day.
Yeah, and that's a great point too, because I mean, technically, it's kind of like the recording budget is like what an artist would view as the advance, right? The advance is literally a record label. You know, a big artist signs with a label, they get advance, but that advance is really a part of their recording budget. So there's a lot of different caveats and reasons why I think that if you're a producer, you probably want to get that big advance and just probably, you know, step away from the situation and maybe check back if the record's really, really big.
Yeah, I agree. I think bigger advances are always better. Like, but for example, like my occasion at the time, like with the first placement that I got, it was like, okay, cool. Like if you feel like you can get your foot in the door by just securing that like connection, that's kind of where it ties in back to like having a good attorney, because the more you as a producer negotiate with the artist about stuff, that could put a strain on like relationships, like big time.
I see it every day.
It happens to me all the time. And labels do business differently. Like I know with Def Jam, they'll send you a session form and a recording form. Like if you were in the room, like you could go ahead, put in like, this is how much time we spent, or this is who was in the room. Like, so there isn't like a lot of room for like, I guess, shadiness. I don't want to say it's shady, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like the more you have like on paperwork, probably like the better. Like, and the less you negotiate as a producer, like the better as well. Like you just let your attorney handle that.
For sure. I'd also say too, I've been feeling like a lot of producers are starting to get a little better at better and, you know, I think worse. Like I think the part of it is I think producers starting to know their rights a bit more, but I think there's now this sort of like stick up sort of feel to because I've been on the other side of it where, you know, a record was released, or that artist, the song was going up and the producer and the artist didn't have a producer agreement in place. And then all of a sudden that song goes viral and then that artist signs to a record label or something and there was no producer agreement. And then, a producer just, hits that guy in the head. And that's always a sensitive thing because that producer definitely deserves to get paid. But, you can definitely leave a bad taste in someone's mouth. And I think it's about just being a business person. That's really what it's about.
Like, because I've had many occasions where, like, I'll be in the studio with this, like, artist that's already signed. Like, they have money, like, everything. And I'll be like, they ask me, how much for this beat right here? Be like, bro, it's negotiable. Like, just, it's always better to just be like, my people will reach out to your people. Because once I say 10 grand for the beat, they're like, oh, come on, P. Like, bro, like, nah, like, let's go to the next beat. Or, like, let's go to, it's always, like, you got to kind of play your cards right. Like, never, like, try to speak too soon.
I'll tell you this, though. There's one producer that I'm clearing for one of my artists. And when I saw what he requested, and this is someone who deserves it, I was like, damn, like, this dude's messing up budgets across America. Like,
okay, so there's still space for that. That's good to know. Goals, right? But just to be clear, because this is one of those major points of anxiety for a lot of us when we're first learning about advances and recoupment. When, say, you get paid in advance and it doesn't recoup, and your account with that label for that particular check is in the negative, you do not owe the label money, correct?
Correct.
That is for that song, I believe. Yeah, I think that account is for that song. Yep, for that recoupment process is for that song.
So when you're negative, just for because people are asking if you actually have to pay the label back the advance if it doesn't make enough money. No, you just don't get paid anything else.
Right.
So then your second point, I'm glad you came up with this 3-tiered point system because that is driving this whole conversation. First point was advance. Second point was points, I believe.
Yeah.
So what are points?
Points are, so everyone knows an artist deal. I think you need to understand how much royalty an artist usually gets on a major label contract. 100% pie. The label usually takes 80 to 84%. And the artist usually takes 16 to 20% in most major label deals. So obviously the artist is getting a small share. So say the artist has a 16% royalty share and a producer gets 4 points, the producer is getting 25% of the artist share. So that's the point concept. So you'd be getting 4 points out of the artist 16%. And
So then the third point you made is publishing, and that's a big one. What if there's any way you can boil publishing down into an easy, simple sentence? I'd be really impressed. But if anyone can do it, it's you, Carl.
Publishing is the royalty you receive for the underlying composition, which is the beat, and on the artist side, it's the royalty. So it's 100% pie. The way we break it down in hip hop and R&B for the most part is 50% goes to the beat maker, instrumental, whoever made the beat, and then the other half goes to whoever wrote the song. So out of that 100% pie, if you produce the whole record, you get 50% of the publishing, and the publishing royalty is performance royalties, public performance. So if it's played in a bar, it's played on a website, it's played in an elevator, all sorts of stuff. That's the public performance royalty. Then there's the sync royalty or license, we'll call it sync license, where you get your stuff in a movie or a TV show. They have to pay you for a fee. And then there's mechanical, which I think in 2020 and beyond is going to be the most important publishing royalty because of its consistency, is a mechanical royalty, which you get paid a mechanical royalty every time a song is streamed, right? So that's important. It adds up. So I think it's probably your most consistent and calculatable royalty on the publishing side.
So moving on to, I guess what most producers tuned in want to know about, because we did talk about placements, but a lot of us aren't there yet. So let's talk about the online beat licensing world. One of the biggest misconceptions I hear from beat buyers is that they don't think they can commercially release or profit from songs they record to on a non-exclusively licensed basis. So in other words, they only think they can profit from a song if they have exclusive rights to that beat, And the whole exclusivity topic is going to probably come up a couple more times today. What is the reality of non-exclusive versus exclusive rights?
You know, it's funny. I almost want to ask P this, because it's something. It's what you say it is. You know, it really is. It's a contract thing. So, you know, I couldn't give a vague answer. I would just say whatever contract you have on your website or whatever contract you have in that beat pack is going to govern the rules of that situation. So I think it's knowing what you want someone to do with your beat if they haven't paid for the full right.
Yeah, I think for me, like from like my personal experience, like I don't really pay too much attention to like tracking down like who's on my lease or if someone's making money off my lease. I think like this is my opinion, you know, like everybody goes about it differently. But let's say like somebody leases a beat from me for like, you know, like I don't know, like $200 or something. I don't know. And cool, they drop a song, they're making money off of it. That's cool. Like I don't really mind. But as long as they know that they don't own it, that's like the biggest thing. Like, because for me, like sometimes I'll even be in the studio with like, you know, local artists, and they're like, oh, yo, you can lease this beat from me. Like from you, like I'll be like, cool. Like here's the lease. Like you know, you don't own it though, right? Because I just wouldn't want it to be a problem ever. Where if it's like I get that same beat to a huge artist, and they think they own the beat. Like that's not the case. Like that's for me. Like, or say like if someone leases the beat from me and it doesn't do anything, and then like a year later that song like blows up, then like that's when I can go to the artist and be like, yo, you know what? Like, you know, you don't own the beat, but like if you want to figure something out, like let's go ahead and like, you know, get our people to talk about it, and you could go ahead just pay for the rest of the beat, or you know, or you know,
or you can continue to license.
Or yeah. You can, yeah, exactly. Like, you know,
right.
So I guess the overlying question is overarching question rather is if you have a non-exclusive beat license, does that prevent you from making any money off of it?
No. Yeah. Usually you have a split on that too. So I think they're usually like 50% at that point, probably. Yeah. If it's like a non-exclusive. 50-50 usually, right?
Mm-hmm. Which you're saying is just the norm. It's what you normally see. So beat licensing and selling a beat to a major label artist, in terms of like publishing at least, it's pretty much the same, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It pretty much is the same. So, yeah, I just think the biggest issue that comes around is that, as P was saying, you know, you leased the beat out, or the terms were silent, and now you know, you want to give that beat to someone else who's bigger. So it's just tough, man. I've seen it. Usually, whoever has the most money, though, is probably going to end up with the rights to that song. Yeah.
So another thing I hear too is from producers. So on the flip side of this, producers think they don't get royalties from non-exclusive beats because they're smaller sales, and then they also think they don't get any royalties from exclusively sold beats because they feel like they sold all their rights to that beat. And it goes back. Well, you're shaking your head, but it goes back to this idea that exclusive and non-exclusive are just words that we assign meaning to on a case-by-case basis. So what's the problem with this term exclusive? I feel like you might have an opinion on that, Carl.
I just feel like producers psych themselves out constantly. It's like a battle of like decode the language, like non-exclusive versus exclusive. Exclusive means someone has the rights exclusively. Non-exclusive means, you know, you can lease this beat to someone else or give this beat to someone else. So it's like, I think you just got to simplify these concepts, because they sound bigger and more dangerous than they are, but they're really not.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you just gotta like remember like that's like your own composition, like you own it. Like regardless if someone has the exclusive rights to it, you still own 50% of it. You know, unless you sign your rights away. But like you still like even if you sell the beat, like it's still technically 50% yours because you made it. So it's like no matter what it is, like I've gotten leases and I have them registered on BMI. You know what I'm saying? Like you never know, like
right.
You know, like it's just you it's like an ownership thing. Like you own it. Like don't think that you're just giving it away or anything like that. Like you're supposed to get paid off of everything that comes out with your name on it. Like point blank period.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people get confused by the work for hire language too when they actually go, because Payne, you kind of started off by saying some producers and exclusives also because they sold the beat and the language might have said work for hire that they don't get any more royalties, and that's just not true. Work for hire is, you know, you're giving up ownership in the master for sure. Like you don't own the master anymore, but in that contract, you're entitled to money on the master recording though. Two different things. You don't own it, but you're getting money.
Yeah, so let's talk about this. So that's what points are.
Right.
When we're talking about royalty points, it's just a percentage of the master royalties. What's confusing to a lot of people, and I'm looking at the chat, and there are a lot of questions about this. People are asking about sound exchange and mechanical. And the problem with collecting royalties is that virtually every different kind of royalty has to be collected a totally different way. It's a big pain in the ass. Can you break down some of these royalty types? What's sound exchange? What's a mechanical? How do you collect these? What agencies do you have to go through?
Yeah. P, are you with a publisher?
No, I'm actually with I'm with Stock Trust.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too. And actually, they talked about your deal when I interviewed. They didn't say your name, but they said to me, they said 6ix9ine is actually really fair to his producers, and they all get 50%. I'm like, they're supposed to get 50%, but I guess good for 6ix9ine.
Yeah. I mean, all the negotiations I've had with them, like they've always been. I mean, granted, I knew him more on like a personal level, but it's not like I never heard of anyone that produced for him like have any complaints. Like I know a couple of them.
And in all fairness, too, Payne, the bigger usually an artist is, the more there's always like some junk coming around, especially if you're not a big producer. So a lot of up and comers who are probably in the chat, like if you got like a big record with an artist, and they will probably come and they know you don't really have the right representation in place, they'll probably try to pull something off, like offer you 30% publishing or something like that. Mm-hmm. There's a sequencer who's taking 10 and you're like, what's going on? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. What's with that? I still want to talk about royalty streams. You're not off the hook, but there is this growing scenario that you're seeing. It's more and more common, and it happens to me all the time, where recording artists want to buy out a producer's writer's share on a beat. Have either of you dealt with this scenario, and what has your response been?
Yeah, I have. I had a client. It's a weird situation. It was sort of in that pseudo indie space where a client signed to a label. An artist signed to a label who, and the label sort of pseudo indie, but pretty much operates like a major label. And a lot of the songs, the one producer did a lot of the tracks, but there was a lot of co-production, a lot of session work. It wasn't necessarily hip hop or R&B either. So when it kind of came down to like, I haven't been, I'm credited as co-producer, and I haven't really been busted down on any splits or I haven't got any money. Me and that producer talked, and we got like a really large sort of fee instead of doing taking any publishing or any percent of the royalty. So that was the one scenario where that happened. But I think it's literally you have to. It's a one-off. I wouldn't recommend that most 99.9% of the time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I would always keep my share, like, no matter how big or small, like, you think the placement is, like, I would keep the share, because who knows, like 10 years from now, like somebody might sample that and it might be the biggest record like in the world, like, and then you don't get anything.
Yeah, and that's I think the sampling part, when you look at like, because when you think about publishing alone, I always try to manage producers' expectations in regards to the ASCAP and BMI statements or their publishing statements. I'm like, look, I know you have 4 or 5 placements, with Lil Got It or something like that, but your publishing is not going to look good, and that's okay. It takes a while to build up your publishing catalog. So most songs you're not going to make that much money off your publishing, but as P just pointed out, there's always it's a mind game. There's always those things where you're like, man, this song's out, it's hot, it's good music. I could see someone sampling this, or I could see the song going viral randomly. How many songs go, viral randomly all the time because of
like, look at TikTok now.
Like a TikTok video
every day.
Yeah. So it's a one-off scenario where I would do that, and the fee would have to be really large. But you're seeing it in other spaces too, right? Buyouts. We're seeing pub buyouts, and royalty exchange are off. Hypnosis is buying people's publishing catalogs. There's other companies too. So if I was representing a producer keeping it simple, I would say no. No publishing is going to get bought out. But money talks and business is business. So if that's what you're offering, make sure it makes sense.
Yeah. It's just gotta make sense, honestly. Like, that's what it comes down to.
Got it. So back to royalties. Can you explain why this whole royalty conversation is so confusing?
Do you mean the master or just all the royalty streams?
Because we have 2
them.
main copyrights for each song, and then
Correct.
From there it's just like this tree with 100 branches.
Yeah, I think the easiest way, on the master side, right? That's fairly easy. Either you're getting paid if the artist is indie, like maybe you have your own TuneCore or DistroKid account or something like that, where it's just paying you directly. And if the song's at a major label, obviously we just talked about those producer points. After recoupment, you should be getting some sort of royalty. So that's the master side. It's either one or two situations. Either you're getting it like that, straight from the label, whoever owns on the copyright on the master, or you're getting it through DistroKid or TuneCore. Now the other side, publishing, it gets a little trickier. ASCAP, BMI, you must be signed up for one of those, or CSAC, or there's a couple other ones, but the other ones are kind of like invite only. So really BMI or ASCAP, that's the public performance royalty. A lot of people register for those two, either or, and they think they're collecting all their publishing. You're not. Now we're talking about the mechanical royalty. That's next. So how do you collect your mechanical? Well, if you're not dealing with Harry Fox directly, which most producers can't, you're probably not collecting them. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Most people probably are leaving some mechanical royalties on the table, unless you sign with some admin company, or Tune Registry, I think, was another company that helped you sort of just streamline your royalty payments.
That's kind of that's what Songtrust does.
Yeah, exactly. Songtrust is great for that. So on Songtrust, you register a record, and then it'll register it on BMI or ASCAP, and then it'll also register for your mechanical royalties. So that's why that service is definitely helpful, and they take a small fee, relatively small fee.
Very small.
Very small.
A lot of because for me, I have it set up to where the first thing I did was I got my YouTube thing set up with video.
Yep.
So I have like YouTube monetization with video and everything else with Songtrust. So like that was kind of tricky to maneuver around, but now I just have it to where my publicist, like his name's Lamont. Like I just call him, or hey man, like I got this new song coming out, like can we register it? Cool. And then he registers it, and the rest is just Lamont
who?
Lamont Graves.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I love Lamont. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my boy.
Yeah, he's good. He's great. And then, so we're at public performance royalty. That's ASCAP BMI. Secondly, we talk about the mechanical royalty. Harry Fox does that, but as we said, kind of tricky to deal with them directly. Kind of have to register with, kind of be in business with someone to collect that. And then Sound Exchange. Everyone talks about Sound Exchange, doesn't really know where that fits in. Sound Exchange is on that master side. So you could blame me if I confuse you a little bit, but I said that, the points were the only thing on that side. Well, Sound Exchange is a master royalty. So you should be getting Sound Exchange letter of direction on your producer agreements, and on these producer agreements,
All of them.
it'll tell you what share of the artist share that you're getting. So it could be 4 out of 16, it could be 25%. You submit that Sound Exchange letter of direction to Sound Exchange, and it has to be fully executed, and then it's registered in their database, and they collect the digital performance royalty. So, Pandora, Beats One Radio, all that sort of stuff. Spotify Radio, things that are
Non-interactive.
Non-interactive, correct. That's the word. So they connect that internet digital performance royalty. So I would get it, because I think we're all moving toward that anyway. So
Yes.
Sound Exchange is definitely going to be more important.
And that's free to sign up for, actually, Sound Exchange.
That's free to sign up. Yeah, I think they're government mandated, regulated too. Yeah.
Yeah. So overall, what would you say is the biggest legal concern with regard to leasing beats online that producers should be aware of?
I think that you should keep your leases. I don't think it should be up to a certain stream level, because that's going to be ridiculously hard to calculate. Like, doesn't even make sense. I just think you should keep your ability to sort of like, I wouldn't say take down a record. It's all about being a business person, right? I think even you should let everybody, you should be as transparent as possible with all parties. So a lot of times you lease that beat to somebody, didn't tell a label or something, and you sold that beat, and then all of a sudden that person that has the beat lease or something, is kind of confused, like what happened there. Just be transparent, and you don't really necessarily owe that person a explanation, but it's about being a business person. So I don't think there's that much of a worry. I mean, you lease your beat, you monetize that, and that's the end of it. And at the end of the day, if you get a placement, it's called a beat lease. So make sure there's some language in there that says, I can take, I can get my rights back to this beat, or you always obviously have your rights, or I can either you have to take this record down in a certain amount of time if I get a major placement, whatever that language is, but just know what you're planning for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we have some questions coming in. We only have about 15 minutes left, so I want to make sure that we get to those. When you sign up for a PRO, how much should you give your producer? How much should you give them if you use DistroKid? How much on Sound Exchange? What is the industry standard? I know you have a opinion on the term industry standard.
Right.
And then are there other platforms that we should be giving a producer a piece of the pie on?
It sounds like that person still is not grasping your different interest in the song. Like when you sign up for PRO, that's a portion of the publishing, as we talked about. But they're also entitled to a piece of producers are also entitled to a piece of the master. If there's no paperwork, so you're entitled to a piece of the master. You own 50% of the copyright. So there is no industry standard. I think working with the record label space, you probably start off at 3 points. But if you're P, or if you're another producer who has a lot of placements or a bigger history, you're sort of able to dictate a little bit more of what that contract says. So I think if it's a big placement, 3 points. But if it's DistroKid, sounds like you're operating at the independent space. That's a business question, man. Like, are you paying that producer? If he's not getting paid, maybe it's a 50-50 split. Maybe that producer's bigger than you, so that producer deserves a 50 split. There's no one answer on this. I don't think there's industry standard. Maybe Pete could chime in.
I mean, for me, it's more like every occasion is different. Like I've
Right.
never had a situation where it's like, oh, this is exactly how it was with da da da. Like nah, like for example, right now, like I just closed a deal with this artist. His name is Young and Ace. Like I got a beat placed to him, and little did I know, like I got a loop sent to me by one of my boys, and there was like 3 producers on me. So it's like, okay, now it's like, okay, are we gonna all split it up evenly, or we ended up splitting it like 20 and then 10 for everybody else, like 20 for me. I got it placed, but it's just like you just gotta know like what you're like. No, I don't want to say what you're worth, but like what like amount of work you put into it. Like if you feel like you deserve like a certain percentage or like a certain like thing like written in the contract, like nothing's stopping you from like at least asking. Like it's just like I've come to learn, like the more open you are with communicating, the easier it is like to just get the thing done, you know?
Right. I agree.
So it's very case by case. It's not like me and or Carl could just like answer the question and that's how it's gonna be like every time. Like every occasion is different.
Yeah. Every single time.
Yeah, so that's why it's important to have a good relationship with your attorney or whatever it is. Like you can call or just email them real quick, like, hey, whenever you get a chance, call me, like talk about it, and then, you know, just go about it like that. Because that's like me, I didn't know anything about, you know, how to get paid before I got my first placement. So it was all trial and error, really. Like, so, you know, setting up the PRO, like what sound exchange, what are royalties, like what, you know, do I, you know, am I supposed to sign the contract really quick? Like, are they gonna drop the song? You know, like there's so many like occasions. Like, you know, I've had occasions with managers on the phone calling me like, if you don't sign this by today, we're gonna scratch the record. I'm like, go ahead, scratch it. Like, bro, like don't, you know, like you'll run into a lot of things.
You
like,
have to learn that. I'm sure you have to learn that because I feel like every producer has to learn that.
Yeah, like because it's like a stress that you don't even need. Like somebody else putting the stress on you.
Right.
Like, I mean, I don't want to like get too sidetracked, but you know what I'm saying? Like every case is different. Like there's not gonna be an occasion where like it's exactly the same as the last one, even with the same artist. You know.
Here's a good question. This is something that I get asked a lot. I'd love to hear your perspectives on this. Here's the question. There are a lot of capitalizations here, so I'll try to scream at those moments. How is it that the producer gets to own 50% of the final product when the artist is the one who pays all of the money to get a song to the finish line and beyond, plus pays the producer? The indie artist has to pay for everything. How is that fair? Please make that clear.
I agree. I think my tone sort of changed a little bit since we used to talk pain. Yeah, no, whoever is yelling like that, question. I agree with that. I mean, I think that's where there has to be a bend and give on the producer side. Like, you have to understand who's putting the money in the record, you know, who's going to have to perform that record. That's hard work. Who's going to have to go out there and really make that record pop is usually that side of the business. And there's certain producers whose name help so much that like it matters, right? Like Metro or Murder or, you know, Mustard, that they still can warrant probably a bigger share. Not even probably, definitely could warrant and say, like, look, we're helping with marketing. I'm Mustard. You know, having me in a video or having my name featuring Mustard is enough. So, yeah. You know, yeah, and that's in that situation, you're like, okay, that makes sense. But yeah, I think for independent artists though, you usually you're barking up someone. If someone's getting 50%, a producer is usually a producer has that much bigger platform than you. And, you know, now when everyone hears your song, they hear that tag, and, you know, they certainly are helping you.
So in a general sense, though, I guess with regard to the 50% thing, I guess I run into a lot of artists who think that by default, everything is being split 50-50. Right. And we've already spoken a lot about the distinction between, you know, points and composition. And we've already established that it's pretty much a given that you're going to start negotiating on the composition side with a 50-50 split. The master side almost always leans in favor of the artist who's releasing the song if they're unsigned, or the label that's releasing the song. So how do we come to the table and have these conversations? What should our expectations be when we do that with regards to this conversation about investment in the song, and how that could or should not affect splits?
See, I think about it like, say, for example, like an artist buys a beat and we split it 50-50, right? That artist, say it's like, I don't know, like Meg Thee Stallion or whatever, right? She's going to go perform that song and she's going to get paid $50,000 just for a 30-minute set. So in my opinion, it's like, okay, like the least you could give a producer is 50% of the song if artists can go and make so much more money performing it, and you know, they could, you know, if they did merch for the shirts, like the producer is not going to see any of that money. If they do, the artist goes on tour, makes X amount of millions of dollars on the whole tour, like the producer only sees the money from the stream that the DJ hit on the, you know, for BMI or whatever it is. So like in my opinion, it's like it's always like case by case, because, you know, bigger artists get paid more for certain things, and then smaller artists, you know, might not get that upfront like money for shows and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a good point. I still don't think the point split is fair enough for producers. Like, I think it should be around 25% of the master, or something around that nature.